Hello everyone, welcome to AIOTA's COVID-19 lockdown series, e-learning modules. Today's topic is Safe Occupational Therapy Practice Guidelines during COVID pandemic. Now, what is the current scenario? All of a sudden, coronavirus has brought life to a standstill all across the globe. In our country also, a lockdown has been announced by the Prime Minister and it extends throughout the country, due to which most of the occupational therapy clinics, rehabilitation centers are shut down. Even in hospitals, very less number of patients are being seen in routine OPD. Fear of infection is at its peak. Possibility of anyone being a potential carrier of infection is very high, as India has reported more than 80% asymptomatic COVID carriers. Most of our services are contact-based interventions, which requires close proximity with the patients and touching them to provide therapy services. This lockdown is going to end someday, and we need to plan strategies so that we can have a smooth transition from lockdown to lockout. We should also remember the fact that clinics cannot remain closed forever. Hospital OPD numbers are set to increase as soon as the lockdown opens, which is going to be a very potential risk to the therapists themselves. Because the number of patients coming in OPD will increase, we are very much prone to being infected by any one of them who could be a potential carrier. Also, we could ourselves be a potential carrier who can infect other persons who are coming in our contact. Occupational therapy services needs to be started immediately, as lack of therapy is causing further deterioration in condition of clients who are taking regular therapy services. Now, what has happened is initially children with special needs, geriatric clients, and all other different kinds of recipients of occupational therapy services were on regular therapy. All of a sudden, they have shifted into a no therapy zone at all. Therefore, there is rapid deterioration in their condition. They are becoming more prone to deformities and contracture, and a possibility of developmental delay in children with special needs can also not be ruled out. Therefore, it is very important that these services are started immediately. Now, what is the way forward? The most important thing is to resume therapy services as soon as possible. Also, it is important to ensure safety of self and also the safety of the client during the therapy procedures. It is important to ensure that settings that we work in remain infection-free and hygienic to prevent spread of infection. We also have to ensure safe occupational therapy practice guidelines are followed. Accordingly, we have to categorize the client population according to their therapy needs. This is going to be one of the most important aspects, because all of a sudden we cannot have all clients starting therapy in one go. We cannot have crowding at our centers. So it is very important that we restrict ourselves to different types of clients who would be requiring different kind of therapeutic intervention in this pandemic situation, which means that there could be certain clients which need not come to the therapeutic centers as such. There could be some clients which come to the centers but do not require personal handling. And there could be a third category which require one-to-one contact and personal handling by the therapist. We also need to reformulate our service delivery methods to adjust according to prevailing pandemic scenarios. So as I said, the clients would be divided into three different groups. The first group is of those clients who don't need to come to the service provider for therapy services. A second group of clients who can come to the OPD or the clinics but can only be given verbal advice and demonstration of exercises and activities. A third group which includes the patients who need to get one-to-one therapy sessions. These include patients having other diagnosis and are admitted in IPD of different hospitals, or who are visiting OPD of hospitals or different clinic and rehabilitation centers, and they require physical handling by the therapist themselves. Now, accordingly, the need for personal protective equipments also arises. For the first group of patients who would be majorly given tele-rehabilitation services, there is no specific need of any PPE. For the second group of patients who would be coming to our OPD, they could be managed only by the use of physical distancing. However, because we are in a COVID pandemic zone, so a basic PPE kit is required for our protection, and this would include medical mask, face shield, gloves, and shoe covers at certain setups. There is a third group of clients who would require PPE. The group 3 would require PPE for the therapist and mask and gloves for the patients. Full PPE is required, which would include impermeable bodysuit, shoe cover, head cover, N95 mask, and face shield, and any other PPE component that is prescribed by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Now, for the first group, teleconsultation to individuals. It is very important to understand that teleconsultation has to be given for proper full duration of the therapy sessions rather than just giving verbal advice. If only verbal advices are given, then patient compliance is going to be very poor. So we have to ensure that we give therapeutic advices in the form of a proper session that we would have had given if the patient had come to us directly. We have to demonstrate all expected exercises and activities that the client is supposed to do. Live demo or recordings may be used. View the actual performance of the client during these activities and exercises. Give proper feedbacks, re-demonstrate wherever necessary. Now it is very important that because the medium of instruction is through the internet or on the telephone. So there are times when the patient would not understand the instructions clearly in one go. So it is important to give them repeated instructions, demonstrations, and clear any doubts that are arising in their minds, and view their performances and accordingly give feedbacks for all the conditions wherein there is some improper exercises that the patient is doing. Also, before actual start of the session, make sure all necessary items which are supposed to be used during the session is made available in advance. This will allow to have uninterrupted sessions, and there won't be any unnecessary delay in organizing the sessions once it has started. It is also very important to involve the caregiver and client in planning of such sessions and plan in accordance to their requirements, space availability at their place, and technological requirements for the session. So any activity that we are planning to give should keep this into consideration before finally it is being prescribed to the patients. Also, give exact dosage of exercises to be done with details of the number of repetitions, number of times in a day when it is supposed to be done, any special positioning or postural precautions that needs to be taken while doing them, and the most important is when to stop doing activities in case of any adverse reactions. The process of tele-rehabilitation can be visualized by this diagram, wherein the rehab services act as a medium of intervention or as a as a connector mode between the therapist and the patient, wherein the therapist is on one side of the tele-rehabilitation process who gives his exercises. The control is in his hand. He can use chat, he can use video, and on the other side is the recipient of the services who does the exercises, who follows the voice commands that are given to him. Now the second group of patients who need to be seen only by maintaining physical distancing, and only demonstration needs to be done with them. Verbal advice regarding precautions, exercise and activity guidelines can be provided. Visual demonstration of the exercises and activities. Actual demonstration of exercises by the therapist in maintaining social and physical distancing. Video demonstration through pre-recorded videos to be shown on display screens if those are available in the setup, or via messaging services like WhatsApp or other medium. Pictorial demonstration by charts and posters can be helpful for this, and a handout can be given to the patient after the interaction, which contains do's and don'ts and detailed procedures of whatever has been told to them. The third group of patients are IPD patients admitted in hospitals. They could be either with COVID diagnosis or they could be having some other diagnosis admitted in a general hospital. So it is very important to ensure proper PPE before entering the patient area as per WHO and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare protocols. It is important to maintain hand hygiene before or after every patient contact. Change of gloves after every contact with patient is mandatory, and maintenance of good respiratory hygiene is also very important. It is also important to identify key points which could be where the therapist or the patient are prone to transmit infection to each other. Mostly these are 5 points. First is before touching a patient. Second is before clean or aseptic procedure. Third is after body fluid exposure. Fourth is after touching a patient, and fifth is after touching patient surroundings. Also, the third group contains clients which are coming to therapy clinics or rehab setups. So before we start therapy services, we have to remember to take a written undertaking about standard COVID declarations, pre-screen before entry to actual service zone, mandatory thermal screening for all, separate assessment and consultation areas should be demarcated, isolate the therapy area. The area where actual therapy needs to be done has to be isolated from rest of the setup so that there is minimal amount of entry and exit through that area, so chances of spread of infection are minimized. Begin one patient per session system, which means that at a time only one patient should be called for therapy services. Once they leave, there should be a gap of at least 10 to 15 minutes before the second group of clients can be taken up. This 15 minutes could be utilized for the clinic and disinfection procedures. Disinfect pre and post therapy for every client. Now, also it is important to avoid therapy sessions if you have any symptoms or you are unwell, if any of the support staff has any signs of being unwell, if any client, caregiver accompanying them show any signs of being unwell. Rules to be followed at office and clinics: ensure maintenance of physical distancing amongst staff, clients at every possible times. Avoid any type of crowding or any other scenario which threatens the possibility of physical distancing. Avoid sitting in groups, physical group meetings or case discussions. Schedule sessions so that there are minimal number of clients at a time so as to avoid gatherings in waiting area. Staggered work timings for staff at the clinic and also for the clients coming to the clinic. As I said, staggered timings mean the staff will come at different times and they will leave at different times with a gap of at least 10 to 15 minutes, and the patients or the clients entering the setup will also leave at a gap of minimum 10 to 15 minutes to allow time for the cleanup and avoid any amount of crowding or grouping of clients. Minimum amount of paper handling and exchange. Try to use soft copies of documents. Avoid unnecessary entry on patient cards or other documents. For some time, separate slips or prescriptions and reports can be given as computerized images shared electronically via phone or email. Precautions modifications during therapy. Keep patient handling and body contacts to minimal as much as possible without significantly compromising the quality of therapy services. It is very important to give one-to-one therapy to the clients. It is important that patient handling needs to be done, but for some time the actual handling needs to be kept to the barest minimum so as to minimize the chances of transfer of infection. Also, extra precaution needs to be taken while handling clients who can discharge body fluids during therapy, specifically those who are having drooling or incontinence. It is also very important that any client who is having any body fluid discharge which is related to cough or any other symptom can straight away be refused to take therapy at that day. Once the client is all right, their therapy can be started again. Keep the number of equipments, devices used by the clients in each session to minimum. It is also important to divide the equipments at the clinic based upon their usage. Now we have to note that this can vary upon the different type of setups and the speciality of the clinic and may be modified accordingly. So the categorization can be into three categories. First is frequently used equipments, second is used in limited cases, and third is very less used. The frequently used ones are the ones which need to be which needs to be disinfected after each and every contact, and it has to be ensured that high degree of infection control is maintained. The less the equipments that are limited use or very less used should be avoided up to the extent as much as possible, because this would allow us time to give the infection control procedures to the frequently used equipments only. Hygiene and infection control. The clinic staff does 2 cleaning and disinfection sessions every day. These are the 2 mandatory cleaning which needs to be done, apart from the regular cleaning which needs to be done before and after every therapy sessions. So 2 cleaning are, one is a full thorough cleaning of all surfaces and exercise therapy devices called effective full cleaning, and the second cleaning goes over the critical areas for a second time called critical surface cleaning. Here the cleaning focuses on door handles, devices, screens, other surfaces with constant contact, restrooms, and any surface which a patient or therapist may touch without gloves. And to this, it needs to be clarified here that apart from this, disinfection of the patient area and cleaning of all the equipment needs to be done each and every time there is a session which has been taken. So pre and post infection control is mandatory. Before and after therapy devices, remember to disinfect the equipments in direct or possible contact of the client or areas which are in close contact with patient's body or aerosol arising from the patient. Cleaning and disinfecting the clinic properly is an important measure which ensures a safe and hygienic training environment. In addition to the outline protocol explained below, the clinic's usual specialized cleaning personnel cleans all of the surface including windows, floor, devices, carpets. Promote regular and thorough hand washing by employees, in charges and all the clients. Put sanitizers, hand rub dispensers in prominent places around workplace. Promote good respiratory hygiene in workplace. Ensure that face masks and paper tissues are available at your workplace for those who develop a nose or cough at work. Now, this needs to be very important to understand that those who will develop runny nose once they come to the center. If they are having a runny nose or cough before coming to the center, they are not allowed to enter the center straight away. However, if due to some allergic reactions, once they have entered the setup and then they develop runny nose or cough, this instruction is for them. So these tissues could be made available to them along with closed bins for hygienically disposing them. For individualized and direct guidance of a patient, the therapist or trainer will follow the same hygienic guidelines provided below. Both patient and therapist will have face masks and single-use gloves on to significantly decrease the chances of germs and bacteria spreading. What are the instructions for the patient and caregiver? Report any symptoms of flu or cough immediately whenever you are supposed to come for a session. Follow immunity building measures as prescribed by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and Ayush Ministry. Avoid touching door handles, cabinets and table surfaces whenever possible. If possible, avoid direct presence of caregivers during therapy sessions. It helps to prevent crowding. It is very necessary. They may be allowed to view the session through see-through glasses or recordings if the facility is there. But as much as possible, direct presence of the caregiver during the therapy should be minimized for a few days. Wash your hands with soap and after drying your hands, use hand sanitizer. Put on the mask and vinyl single-use gloves throughout the sessions. Place the single-use gloves in the provided trash bin, collect your belongings, and leave the clinic at least 5 minutes before your designated time is over. So all caregivers are told to leave the clinic at least 5 minutes before the designated time. After that, a 10-minute gap is kept before the next session will continue. This allows for air ventilation to change the air properly and the disinfection procedures to be carried on. So it is very important to ensure client safety. It is very important to ensure your safety. And at the same time, it is important to give quality therapeutic services without compromising the quality of service that is being given. However, ensuring that safety of each and everyone around you is equally important. Thank you.